Something called my name in the mountains. Back in 2021, my family took a trip to Lake Sinitla in North Carolina, a beautiful lake that's rich in Native American history and surrounded by mountainous trails. We decided to go on one of these trails on an overcast day. I am not an athletic person and suffer from asthma, so I was behind the rest of my family by myself. About almost halfway through the hike, I heard my sister yell my birth name, but it sounded like it was off the trail. She never calls me by my real name, just my nickname I've had since I was a baby. It sounded like she was scared, so I was very tempted to run off and find her, but I knew my sister wasn't stupid. She wouldn't go off the trail even in the case of an emergency. I quickly caught up to the rest of my family, and there was my sister, resting on some rocks next to a waterfall. She was chatting it away, taking pictures, and I asked her if she had called my name. She didn't know what I was talking about. She had been talking to our dad the whole time. I don't know what called my name that day, but I'm glad I didn't listen to it. Who knows what would have happened to me? I haven't been to that trail since this encounter. I don't have a clue what called my name or what it was. If you're educated on the Appalachian folklore, please give me some insight on what could have happened to me. Black shadow or a demon? I grew up in a very small rural area that was once a coal camp in the 1920s to the 1950s. I spent my childhood and teen years there in the 80s and to early 90s. My grandmother, who lived there, said she remembered looking out her window one evening and saw this black shadow thing running all along the hillside to different houses. My brother was walking home late one evening and saw this thing sitting in a tree, watching him. But the scariest was my younger brother, who said he had been in his bedroom looking out the window one day, and he heard a voice call his name from outside. He looked, and there it was, sitting on an embankment near his house looking at him. There have been countless stories of it from my family. Both of my brothers said it had sort of red eyes. We have a big family and all of us have seen things in this area. I've seen 2 full-body apparitions. Someone please help. Paranormal patterns. This past week I was staying in Rome and had an experience that was very similar to one I had this past summer when I was in Germany. Both were paranormal, and I am looking for some comments, info, or ideas about these experiences being so similar. Basically, both events occurred at night and in the early hours of the morning. In both cases, I went to bed like normal. I typically have very vivid creative dreams. I remember my dreams almost every night. I never dream about places I go to in real life, or even usually people from my life. It's always very random and makes no sense. However, in both of these instances, I dreamt that I was lying in the same position, in the same bed, in the same room, at the same time of night. I could sense an energy in the room on both separate occasions. The first experience, the energy was very threatening, bothered, agitated, and it felt angry, like I wasn't supposed to be in that space. The second experience, it felt like multiple energies trying to get my attention. They were whispering in my ears and saying, "Hey," over and over again. The first experience scared me more, partially because I had not experienced that before and because the energy was more hostile. The second experience creeped me out. The energy felt more curious or playful. Finally, even when I have nightmares, I may wake up for a few seconds and drift back to sleep. In both of these instances, I woke up wide awake, my body fully alert and my heart pounding, unable to relax for a long time after. It felt very physically disturbing. I have read that the veil is thinnest in the early hours of the morning, which makes sense with the time that these experiences occurred. What I am curious about is why these things happen to me when I am sleeping. I love scary movies, but I have never convinced myself that a place is haunted. Both locations were easily several hundred years old or more, but I didn't go into the space expecting to experience anything, feeling off or freaking myself out. Is there any explanation for why there would be communication like this through my dreams? What's happening in our house? I'm coming to you because at this point I don't know if we're crazy or if something weird is happening in our new house. Bit of a backstory. Last July we purchased the house next door to the house I grew up in. The house is 28 years old with only one owner. He's a single guy who lived alone his whole life, never had any visitors. It was odd. He decided to downsize with his old age, and that's how we ended up buying the house. Me personally, I've never felt a sense of being scared while in the house. I'm a stay-at-home parent, so I'm pretty much here 24/7 with our two kids. My husband, on the other hand, has been terrified. Anytime I've ever experienced anything out of the ordinary, my husband has been around. He's been experiencing weird things quite frequently, though. There's been times where a specific toy in our kids' playroom will go off when no one's in the room. For the toy to make any noise, you have to push the buttons. The toy kept laughing while we were eating dinner, and my husband walked in there and said, "Do it again." Well, it did it again. The other night, my husband woke up because he heard a loud bang downstairs. I heard nothing. He came downstairs to look around and found nothing. While he was downstairs, he said he heard footsteps upstairs, so he came running back upstairs. Both of our kids were in bed, fast asleep. He woke me up and asked if I had heard the bang and got up. I said no. The next night, at the exact same time, 3:33 a.m., he said he heard our daughter laughing and babbling in her room. We have French doors separating our dining room from our kids' room, and we keep them closed at night. We've had family spend the night, and they said it sounds like the doors are opening and closing. My husband fell asleep downstairs before, and he said, well, that it sounded like somebody was banging. Me, I've never experienced it. Now here's where things kinda give me the creeps. My son, who's 4, keeps talking about someone named Tommy. We have no friends or family with that name. No one in his class with that name either. He said Tommy comes to play with us, so basically, he's playing with a kid that's not there. What do you guys think? Is my husband losing it, or could it be something messing with him? Like I said, nothing happens to me while I'm alone, just when he's around. Edit. I forgot to add, the other night after tucking our kids in, we heard our kids' usual noises while they fall asleep, but also a very deep voice, which is odd because we both heard it and was like, what the fuck? Went upstairs to investigate, and there was nothing. My baby sister could see things. When I was about 17, I was babysitting my little sister. All was well, and it was a sunny day, and we were hanging out in her bedroom playing with her play kitchen. She was about 3 years old. So we were sitting on the floor, while she's babbling away about whatever goes through a 3-year-old's brain and making me a plastic sandwich. When all of a sudden, she stops. She looks up towards the ceiling. She points her finger at the corner and says, "I don't like that guy." I reply, "What guy, Bubba? There's no one there." She looks back up and says, "The guy with the noose." Needless to say, we got the fuck out of there, and while later I was texting my mother letting her know what happened. When I sent the message, I attached this emoji of a screaming face, and apparently my sister peeked over at my phone and she goes, "Yeah, that guy. I don't like him." Weird. Ghost in a graveyard. Sorry for the formatting as I am on my phone. Wanted to share my recent experience of going on a short trek and camping trip. Initially, it was supposed to be a trip with my friend, but unfortunately, he dropped out at the last hour, and I decided to make it a solo thing. I started my journey on my motorbike, navigating through country roads that were quite narrow and full of curves. The dense trees on both sides of the road made it challenging for me to go faster than 30 miles an hour. To make things worse, there wasn't a single source of light apart from my bike's headlight, and the stars were barely visible. The only thing that was radiating a bit of light was a half moon and my adventurous spirit. Around 10 p.m. as I passed through a small village and took a turn towards my destination, I felt a cold chill pass through my spine, and I had goosebumps all over my hands. Soon after, my headlight started to flicker, and I decided to turn back because it was pitch black, and I couldn't continue if my headlights gave out, so I looked for a good spot to camp. However, I couldn't find any suitable spot nearby, and since I couldn't find any people awake and I didn't want to set up a camp on someone's property without their permission, and my headlights seemed steady, I decided to head towards my destination as it was only 30 minutes ride from where I was. As I passed through the spot where I felt the cold chill earlier, I noticed a small village graveyard nearby. But nothing unusual happened this time. I still couldn't get over how uneasy the feeling of the weight over my head was. A little further down the road, I finally found a temple with the only source of light in the vicinity. Thank God.